Good Thursday evening, everyone. A special edition of the Carolinas Weather Group. Meteorologist Scotty Powell here from Burke Weather, and excited to have James Spann on tonight. This is just something that we've been looking forward to for the past couple of months. Once we knew that James could come join us, and a Thursday night edition, I think we're going to kind of let the reins loose. We don't really have a topic to discuss tonight. We're just going to talk everything weather with Mr. Spann, one of the best American-known meteorologists here in the country. So looking forward to this next hour and a half or so, however long our show will go tonight. So really excited about this. I'm going to go around and let the panel introduce themselves before we pass it off to Ricky. So I'll start up in the mountains of North Carolina, just up to my north, with a guy who has joined us. He's been off for a couple of months. So Kenneth Reese, how you doing, my friend?
Hey, I'm pretty good, Scotty. Thanks so much. It is good to be back with you guys. It has been quite a while. I'm Kenneth Reese with WatagaRoads.com, servicing the high country of North Carolina, East Tennessee, and the southwestern section of Virginia with news and weather and traffic updates and all of that good stuff. Again, thank you for letting me join. I've been so busy with the items with the website and weather that I haven't got to be a part of this discussion in several months. So really looking forward to it tonight with our special guest, James Spann. I'll send it down the road now. Man, I forgot where you guys live. It's been so long. Joey, I'll send it down to you.
All right. Thank you, Kenneth. Good to have you back. I'm Joey with Catawba County Weather. Most of our normal viewers already know me well. Pretty excited to have James Spann on with us tonight. My little James Spann story. I spent the big tornado outbreak. I spent at the Outer Banks in North Carolina, and my entire family, I completely ruined like 2 days of our vacation because I was glued to the TV watching it on the Weather Channel. Had the computer up, watching your live feed as much as I could. It totally ruined their vacation. But you know, being the weather geek I am, I was pretty excited. So I'm glad to finally have you on here and semi-meet, I guess we could say, virtually get a chance to meet each other. But I'll skip back since Kenneth kind of skipped over Daniel. We'll jump back to Daniel, who's still in the upper foothills, we'll call it.
Thank you, Joey. My name's Daniel Crawley. I'm sure everybody's familiar with me on here. I've not been on in a couple of weeks. I've been real busy with some high school basketball, but I work for the McDowell Weather page along with Scotty and Joey then with the Bird and Catawba when needed. It was a great day here in the McDowell County area, Marion, North Carolina. We had a temperature in the mid-40s, about 46 degrees for a high, and it's been great weather here the last few days. And glad after last week when it seemed like it was cloudy for an entire week, it's last couple of days have been really nice. And I was over in the Asheville area today doing some cheese delivery for a local farmstead we have here in McDowell County, and the weather over there was pretty nice. It was chilly. Temperatures were in the 30s in the Asheville area for most of the day, but nice weather in the land of the sky.
Trade with you.
You want to trade with me?
You had highs in the 40s. We only got to 31 today with wind chills in the 20s and teens all day long. I'll trade with you.
Well, I will say the wind was pretty brisk in Asheville, and I think I know when I was rolling through there about 2 o'clock today, it was about 36. So if you want to trade, I'll be willing to take it. I like cold weather.
Hey, Kenneth, before we toss it to Ricky, Kenneth, how much snow have you guys picked up already in Watauga County throughout November and early part of December?
Oh, goodness. Well, you know, actually, November was or rather, it was the coldest. Sorry, my brain is totally fried tonight. It was the coldest November for Watauga County since 1980, and actually around the third coldest November, dating all the way back to 1929. So, snow-wise, seen Novembers that had a lot more snow than we had recently, but the big story was the cold weather, and it continues. Earlier this week, we had snow, well, yesterday and day before, we had snow and sleet in parts of the county all day long. The other half, the eastern side of the county near the Blue Ridge Mountains, had sunshine. Go figure. So, yeah, November's been just very, very cold up here.
Awesome. And I didn't mean to cut Ricky off, but I'll go ahead and let Ricky introduce himself and then introduce our guest tonight. Ricky.
All right. Thank you, Scotty. Yeah, Ricky Matthews here with UNCC Weather, a UNC Charlotte meteorology student finishing up his next to last semester. We just took our last final yesterday at 8 o'clock at night was when it began. So not a fun time to take a final, and I think the rest of my class kind of agreed with that because they were not too happy when we got out of there. But today was a lot better than yesterday. We were actually trying to figure out the forecast for Michigan today. I'm currently first in the weather challenge, and we were trying to figure out whether we were going to go higher or lower on the temperatures. So that has been our big little thing going on today. But tonight we would like to welcome James Spann to our show, who I probably don't even need to introduce, but I'll go ahead and do it anyway. James is the chief meteorologist down at ABC 3340 in Birmingham, Alabama. He joined that station just shortly after it formed, and he's been there through blizzards and tornadoes, hurricanes, and about anything else you can throw at him. What did I miss, James? Lover of barbecue, football, baseball. Did I miss anything?
Overall goober. That's about it.
A Mac freak. I forgot about that.
I'm a boring guy. I mean, I don't have much of a life. The problem we have in weather is that it doesn't stop, which doesn't give you a chance to really get out and see the world anymore. So I live in a closet and I do weather all the time, and that's about it. So
I can confirm that he does actually live in a closet at the station, because I've been down there and visited once, and you can fit about, what, 4 people or so in that room?
Yeah, Ricky's been in my closet. People mock me all the time for this little room here, but it's really nice because nobody really in this building knows where I am, so nobody comes back here and bothers me, and I can do shows like that. I guarantee you nobody will come back here for the next 3 hours because they don't even know I'm here. So the privacy is nice. It's not exactly roomy back here, but hey, I'll take it. It's nice.
And James, over the years, you've seen basically everything the weather's had to throw at you, and especially the state of Alabama. Talk about from when you first got into the business, how weather was communicated to today.
Well, I started doing the weather on television in 1978. I'm old as dirt. In 1978, I was the ripe old age of 22. And I was drawing on plexiglass with magic markers. And at the end of the weathercast, you had to get this like rubbing alcohol and put it on that thing and rub the whole thing down. So that's how far we've come. And we introduced computerized graphics, at least in my market in Birmingham, in 1981. We bought an Apple IIe, and let me tell you what, that was huge. The thing had a 5 megabyte drive. I thought at the time in my entire life we would never fill that thing up. But we had the Apple IIe. We had a piece of hardware from a company called Chromemco, and those two pieces of hardware generated very primitive, but at the time, incredible graphics. And of course, here we are today. Everybody knows what we do. I would say the biggest change for me, it's back when I started doing this, I had to worry about going on television twice a day. I would go on television at 6 o'clock in the evening, and we're a central time zone station here, 6 o'clock in the evening and 10 o'clock, and that's it. I can't even imagine what life was like back then. And, I'd go, visit schools, and I'd do that, but today we're in a world that doesn't turn off. It doesn't stop. So we're learning how to adjust, and it's radically different. But I like it. It's it's a long day. It's a hard day. But if you like weather, it's a fun day.
But how do you adjust? I mean, tell someone about your daily schedule and how you find time to do other things like this.
Well, here's the problem, is that we all have things in life that are high priority, higher than weather. At least we should. One of the things was funny. I'll see some people that apply for a job here, and it says in their cover letter, "I eat, sleep, and breathe weather." That's weird. I don't want anybody like that working here. I mean, come on. You need a life. You need something going on other than this. And I understand what they're trying to say. They're trying to say they have a passion for this, which is cool. But in my case, I've been married for 33 years. I have a wife. I have 2 children. Of course, one's grown. We have one left, and he's a senior in high school, so we're about to be empty nesters. But I do some other things that are important, and you have to prioritize, and that can be very hard in a world where people expect you to be available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I'm not saying there's a magic answer, but I do think there's a time where you do have to put your phone down and put your tablet down and spend 2 hours with your wife. Go to dinner, go to a movie, quit looking at the stinking tweeters and the Google Plus and the Instagram, and just put it down and take care of important stuff, and then those people are still going to be there. But other than that, the main thing is learning to live without sleep. I get up every morning before 5. My day starts at 4:52 in the morning, and for you guys that might not be too early, but it's a little early for me because I work the night shift on television. But in the morning, I do the weather on 24 radio stations, commercial radio stations, write internet products for our blog that we own, AlabamaWX.com. I do videos for our digital weather channel, do videos for the blog, the Weather Extreme video. Some of the radio is live, Rick and Bubba and things like that. And then at 8 o'clock, I try and spend some time with my wife. Most couples talk at night. Well, we talk in the morning. And then I go speak somewhere every day, unless I've got a board meeting like I had today. I'm the chairman of the board of a big hospital here. But I go teach science in schools. I love getting kids excited about schools, and they energize me, and I just like going into elementary schools. It's great. And I come up here, I work 2 to 11, and my television newscaster locally are 4, 5, 6, and 10. And so this is a break. This is my lunch break here. Most nights I'll go home during this time and see my family, have dinner at home, but you guys are my family tonight. But, I get home at midnight, and you get home and you still have to answer all the stuff from social media, and I will go to sleep about 1. So I go to sleep at 1. I get up at 4:52. That is not enough sleep for an old man like me. It's not enough sleep for anybody. And by Friday, I'm dead. I mean, my mouth is moving, but my brain is shut down by Friday. So tomorrow, I'm no good. But, I get some sleep on the weekend, and you just have to recharge. And that's the problem I see, is that it seems like the next generation doesn't want to do this. And to do this job right at this moment, you have to live without a lot of sleep, and you have to be working a lot. And if you don't want to do that, you shouldn't be in meteorology or doing what I do, because it's hard. It's long, hard hours. But if you like weather, it's fun.
You just made my girlfriend's night by saying put your phone down and spend some time with her sometimes instead of looking at the radar. So I'm sure she'll use that quote against me here coming up soon. But
sorry.
And my wife just said that that's okay. I don't have to spend any time with her.
Wow.
We passed the 10-year mark, James. After that it's downhill, I guess. I don't know.
To expand on James's point just a little bit, we have a diverse group of panelists here with different media backgrounds, experiences. Some are up and coming. Ricky, you're going to be a superstar one day that I think we're all going to work for. But, James makes a great point. From a traditional broadcasting standpoint, I can understand what he's saying about going to bed at 12 or 1 o'clock and then getting back up at 4, because I did overnights in radio for a long time and kind of had the same thing. You make a good point, though, about turning the phones off and trying to decompress some. So you say that Fridays are your day to try and let that happen if there's nothing severe happening in your market?
Well, Fridays are my bad day. It's just like I've had no sleep all week, and no, I still work hard. I mean, like tomorrow is Friday. I will get up at 4:52, do the production schedule, spend some time with my wife. I drive to a middle school tomorrow about 50 miles away in Gadsden, Alabama, and come back and do the television shift. And no, Fridays I still work hard, but I'm just saying Fridays I'm out of gas. I mean, I've got nothing. My days, and here's the problem during the fall. Like on Saturday, I do weather support for a large Division I college football team, and when they're home, that takes up all day, even if there's no bad weather, because I'm still tied into sponsor money, and you just have to be there. Mm-hmm. It's the University of Alabama, and but typically Saturday is my day to decompress. I will sleep until like 8 o'clock Saturday morning, which is marvelous. And I will try, like tomorrow, we're going to go see some Christmas lights. We're going to go do something fun. I say not tomorrow, but Saturday. We might go to a movie. That's the decompression day. And then Sunday, I play tennis Sunday evenings. I do, and I work in children's ministry. I do children's worship on Sunday morning at a church, which is pretty hard work. But on Sunday nights, I play tennis. We play hard. I play for about 3 hours, and that's my exercise for the week. I will die if I don't get exercise. and then you got to go to sleep and you start all over, and it's Monday. So, and what complicates things, and that's just when the weather's routine. When you've got a winter storm or a tornado outbreak or something like that, oh goodness, that little 3-hour window of sleep I have. If you got an overnight severe weather event that eats that up, that's a killer. So, and we have a lot of overnight severe weather events here, but thankfully our weather's been very quiet. It has been a quiet stretch since 2011 here, since April 27th.
And James, speaking of doing this work, has your broadcast career always been in Birmingham, or did it take you somewhere else before you established in Birmingham?
Yeah, that's a classic shot right there. That's a good look. I mean, that's a good-looking man right there. I was playing tennis and had to come in for a tornado warning. In the weather business, when it comes to thunderstorms, expect the unexpected. The great legend Alan Moeller in Fort Worth taught me that, and that was a Sunday night I was playing tennis. But no, I've spent most of my career in Birmingham. I started as the chief weather anchor at the NBC channel here in 1979. When I was 23, I was transferred to Dallas. It was kind of an interesting move. I worked at that channel in Birmingham from 79 to 84. In 1984, I was transferred to Dallas. I was 28 years old, didn't ask to go. They just said on a Friday, you're going to Dallas. That's the biggest station we own, and you start Monday. So naturally, I go home to tell my wife, and she went into labor, and our son was born the next day. And they still made me go to Dallas on Monday. Back in those days, now guys get family leave for like 3 weeks. I had like 1 day. But I was at Channel 4 in Dallas, KDFW Television, which is now the Fox affiliate. When I was there, Channel 4 was the CBS affiliate, and I was the chief weather anchor, and I was brought in as the young, aggressive guy to kind of, step up the weather operation and to spend some money. Back in the 80s, TV stations were a license to print money. We got a lot of things accomplished. We did spend a lot of money, with weather equipment out there, but it was a different world. I'll never forget when I was in Dallas one morning. I was at home about 11:30, and the news director at Channel 4 called, and he said, "You're doing a live shot today for the 5, 6, and 10 o'clock newscast." And I said, "Great, where?" And he said, "The National Hurricane Center." And of course, I thought he was just joking. I said, "By the way, Wendell, that's in Miami." And he said, "No, I'm not joking." He had a Lear jet waiting on me at the Addison Airport. So, and again, this was 11:30. He wanted me live at the National Hurricane Center in Miami at 5 o'clock. So, drove down to the Addison Airport. They had a Lear jet. Hopped on that sucker, walked off the airplane in Miami at 4:30. I was there. A limousine picked us up, and we were there doing weather at 5 o'clock. So those were different days when there was so much money floating around. But I had the chance to come back home. This is my home, so I've been back in Birmingham since the late 80s. And I was born here. I'll die here. I'll be buried here. So my next move is to the cemetery.
Obviously, you're a big proponent of social media. That's how all of us know you. The WeatherBrains podcast and associated outlets are, highly revered in the weather community, and not even just the weather community. I would even say the broadcast community. You talk about traditional media, and back in the 80s, radio and television stations were just printing money, at will almost. Now that things have changed, you have a front row seat as to how social media has changed things. How do you see that kind of moving forward now that we have so many more mainstream outlets, radio and television, finally joining social media?
You guys ought to get Kevin Selly on here sometime to talk about social media. He's one of our WeatherBrains guys. Kevin's in Texas, and he has a lot to say about that. In fact, he wrote a great post on the Digital Meteorologist blog today. Everybody's got to read that. But the social media is great, and at the same time, it's very frustrating. And let me just say this. I'm an early adopter. Any success I have, I think it's simply related to the fact that I get on this stuff early. When I was 14, I got a ham radio license. That was the social network of the 70s. In the 80s was ham radio, and to this day, that you guys know it serves a very important purpose in the warning process. My call sign is Whiskey Oscar 4 Whiskey, WO4W. But I got this stuff early, and I see it now. It's a necessity. Some people don't like it. I find it just an extension of a way that we can serve our customers. And we're in the service business, and if you don't think we're in the service business, you got no business doing weather. Whether you work for the National Weather Service or private sector, if you are doing operational meteorology, if you're preparing weather products and services for the public, you're in the service industry, and it's your job to serve the people. You have to have a servant's heart, and that's just another way that we can communicate. And what it's done, of course, is opened up this two-way dialogue. Instead of us pushing content to the world all the time, now people can communicate back, and that gives the people great power. What's happened? The power shifted away from those of us in traditional media to the people. And some people find that very frustrating, especially news people. I kind of like it. But the old Ron Burgundy model, we're going to do things our way, and we're going to demand that people watch us on our time schedule at our convenience. It doesn't work that way anymore. We have to provide products and services for the public's convenience. And if you don't do that, you have no hope. And I would not advise getting in this business. There's still some young people that think if they get their teeth whitened and get a really nice hairstyle and get a nice little pocket square and some nice clothes, and they have non-regional diction, they're going to make $500,000 a year and be in some big market. But they have no interest in serving the public. That's being a jerk, and that's just not going to work. So to me, it's just it's an ability to serve the people. The problem we have is that we can't monetize social media directly, and social media is constantly changing. We don't own the platform. Facebook, they can change their algorithm overnight, just like that. Everything you've done doesn't work anymore. Same thing for Twitter and Instagram and Google Plus and LO or whatever comes down the line, and that's very frustrating. But we have to drive people to products and services we can monetize, and you can do that. But it's frustrating. I'm telling you, it's very frustrating because those catbirds will change the rules on you in a heartbeat.
Hey, I have a question, and James or whoever else on the panel can maybe answer this. Why does it seem like Facebook changes constantly, but say Twitter has kind of been steady through its inception? Why do you think it's been like that?
You guys ought to have Zuckerberg on this program and ask him. No, look, now Facebook is public, and of course Twitter's public, but they're under pressure to monetize, and I've got no problem with that. Hey, we all have to eat, we have to feed our families, but they're under pressure to continue to grow at this exponential rate and to bring in ad dollars, and that's basically what they're trying to do. And if you like, my Facebook page it says 180-something thousand people like me. I know that's not true, and there are days 5 people don't like me, but people are liking that to get weather information. But the organic reach has dwindled down to just nothing. I mean, I launched a post today with some pictures this afternoon, and again, you got 188,000 likes, and you're going to reach, if you're lucky, 30,000. If you got a really hot piece that people are sharing, it's going to be higher than that, but it's about 20 to 30,000. But what they want you to do is pay them. If you want to boost this, and if you want to get 50 or 100,000 people looking at this, we can make that happen. But you've got to pay the piper, and they'll gladly take your credit card number, and so that's their business model. Twitter, look, at some point they're going to have to do the same thing. I mean, I would not be shocked if Twitter gets into the filtering business, and it's the same problem there. LO is an interesting concept. They're kind of the anti-Facebook social media platform that's brand new. Who knows? I mean, but the bottom line is we have to be there, and we just have to do the best we can. We have to keep up with it. We have to understand it. The problem is, my first major in college was electrical engineering, and I finished in meteorology. I don't understand anything about broadcasting or social science or whatever, so we have to learn to keep up with this stuff and just be good at reaching people and being there for people that ask questions.
And to follow up on that, Daniel, it's basically, almost like any other businesses. You have two different people, companies, corporations that own both, and they're both trying to find their way, in the social media ocean. Twitter, to their credit, and I think we all can agree, has done a much better job of not changing their algorithms as much. They've been changed some, but Facebook, that's anybody's guess, because like James said, I mean, I feel like I have firsthand knowledge about this. I started a Facebook page 4 years ago for conditions in our area. When that took off, I quickly made a website to encompass everything that was coming in, and I cannot even tell you, James touched on it, how aggravating every single day when I post something to Facebook that I feel is quality content that folks need to see. I'm lucky if a fifth of my nearly 20,000 followers now even see it. Beyond aggravating. And, obviously we all know Facebook's not going to change that anytime soon, but like James said, we just have to keep up with it and keep on, but it's just part of the struggle.
So James, here's the question off of all of this. If we can't reach people the way we're going now, how do we reach them? What do we change in the ways we're doing?
Well, number one, you have to be on platforms you can control, and that's not social media. And at this point, anybody can put up a website and build an app. And quite frankly, the world has gone mobile. I mean, websites are kind of 90s, I mean, if you don't have a good app for your products and services, then you've got a problem. So you have to be there. You can control that. You can't control the cut of money that Google takes or Apple takes from that, but yet you can develop an app. You can put all your products and services there. You can monetize that. That's a very viable way of reaching people, and you got full control. We did a James Spann app, and basically that's just an aggregate of all my products and services in one place. And the television station owns my name. I'm in a strange situation where I'm owned by the TV station here, but yet we do have a private weather business. But that's a 3340 thing where I work here, and they've done very well with that. They make a lot of money. They control it, and so you have to be there for mobile. You still have to have a web presence. We've still got the blog, and that quite frankly makes a lot of money for us. I mean, that's owned by the Weather Factory, which is our private weather business. But you use social media just to drive people to those products and services, and say, if you want to get my stuff all the time, go to this app. Just put it on your phone, and it's always there. Or go to this website, and it's always there. And remind people that social media is what it is. I mean, you're not going to get everything we put out, and there's just some limitations, and you have to do some education. But again, we have to be careful because we have to be there for people, and we have to provide products and services based on their needs, not ours. And the greatest thing, what I recommend people to do, everybody on the show and everybody that's watching that wants to do what I do, hang out at your local Walmart and Target and talk with people. You don't need $1 million research project. You can go down there. And weather people, we sit around these tables and we decide what's right for us. And we're not normal. We're deviants. We're not. We are anomalies in society. Go down and talk with real people in a working class part of your town, and they will tell you what they need and how they need it and on what time they need it, and that will help you. That's what you have to do. So I guess the message I've got, it's not about you and it's not about me. It's about the people we serve.
And I think a lot of people forget that, and it's sad because I take note to what you said. This is a servant business, and we're out here to serve the people. It's nothing about what I want or what anybody else wants. We have people that need to know when a tornado warning's being issued or where that tornado may be at. And a lot of times we get mixed up in doing things that we want, that we do forget about what we're here for, the people and what they need. So.
Yeah, and we have to just understand there's simple truths that are hard, especially for people that have been doing what I do for a long time. Nobody is going to wait until the late news at 11 o'clock to watch some blow-dried boob on television to find out what the weather's going to do. They're going to get it, right here when they want to get it, and we have to be there for them. And if you think somebody is going to wait on you until 11 o'clock at night to find out what the weather's going to be, then you're arrogant. I mean, you got some kind of ego problem or something. You must be really good looking, or there's got to be some really good reason for them to stay up and watch you. And what we have to do on these late newscasts is to kind of go past the traditional Ron Burgundy stuff and understand this is not the 80s, not the 90s, not the O's. We're in a whole new decade here with the new models. So we have to be relevant and provide stuff on television that's people want to watch, and that's something we're having to figure out too. So this whole thing is changing like a meteor streaking through the night, and you cannot rest on what worked last year or even 6 months ago. We have to be willing to change.
And obviously we all know, we all deal with this from the national to local to regional levels about the misinformation that's on social media. We all in our respective outlets have talked about it. Some have even named outlets trying to get folks to not, put all their eggs in a basket with. and that seems to continue to be more of a problem every month and every year. And really, I started to ask James, how do we combat that? But I guess the thing is, you just continue to put quality information on your outlets, and you kind of have to ignore all the others because you'll get caught up in all the hoopla about them and lose track of what you do sometimes.
Yeah, we can't stop these boneheads. I mean, you cannot stop these knuckleheads from putting out this outrageous clickbait stuff. Their goal it is to get on people's Facebook feeds and get a bunch of clicks where they can monetize that. They could care less if it's the truth or not. They're going to put out the most outrageous, arrogant stuff that's not even close to being the truth. They don't care what the truth is, and we can't stop that. And I do think the one thing that the National Weather Association has done, that I like this. Within the last few months, they have initiated a new seal of approval program for digital, not for broadcasters, but for those that write digital products and services. And one of our guys that writes for our blog got seal number 1, a guy named Bill Murray, and I love that. Bill's not on television. He's not on commercial radio, but he writes for the blog, and he writes all the time. He's one of our best writers. So I think that's a step in the right direction. I'd like to see the AMS move in that direction. We talked with Dr. Shepard about that, and and if we get that rolling, then we can just tell people, look for the seal. If you see that seal from the AMS or the NWA on that product, I'm not going to guarantee it's right, but I will guarantee you they're qualified to write that. And, these other knuckleheads, it's easy to get hung up in that because this stuff is so stinking outrageous. You just want to shut them down. I don't have time for that. We'll never shut those guys down. They're like roaches. You stomp on them, they'll come back. You could have a nuclear bomb and they'll still come back. But if we're good, then they'll ultimately figure out that we're good and they'll stay with us.
And I'll even add in there too the National Weather Service and NOAA Weather Ready Nation Ambassador Program too. That seems to be a way that they're reaching out too to try to distinguish more. I don't want to say qualified outlets, but more outlets where folks know, you're getting reputable information from.
Yeah, you're not going to see something like that go to one of these, boneheads, these loons. So yeah, anything like that is good. And I'm not saying that whoever's writing this material you're reading has to have a PhD in meteorology or applied climatology or whatever. They don't. And the other thing too, I don't want this to discourage, some 15-year-old kid that loves weather from writing products about weather. No, that's not the point of this. What the problem, it's those that say, we're going to have a life-threatening winter storm in 2 weeks that will affect Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, and Oklahoma City. Make preparations now. Spread this and like it and send it to all your friends. Where there's not a shred of truth in that. And what happens, people go out and they buy stuff, stocking up for a blizzard that's never going to happen, never had a chance of happening, and it discredits the weather enterprise, and the next time they hear something from a real meteorologist, they won't believe it. So, that's the biggest problem. I don't want to discourage kids from writing responsible products that aren't outrageous. There's a lot of very smart high school kids and college students that are good at what they do, and I enjoy reading their products and services.
James, don't we fight a little bit, though, even with ignoring people, how people were going to say they were wrong versus he was wrong or she was wrong?
Yeah, you get into this stuff, and in my old, and let me just say this, I'm a guy, and I'm competitive. I mean, I think men have this problem where you want to win, and I think that emotion has not been healthy for me in this business, especially when I was younger. In my older age, I see now it's more important for us to be on the same page. We'll never say it the same way. We'll never communicate it the same way. But when it comes to a big winter storm, a big severe weather event, the weather enterprise needs to communicate the same message. It eliminates confusion. The old cowboy and all of us, we want to be right. We want to get this thing right. Everybody else is going to be wrong. We're going to be heroes. We're going to have this promo, and it's going to be unstinking believable about we were the only station that called this a weekend. I don't care about that anymore. We've got to be on the same page, and we have to fight that emotion. And all these lunatics, everything everything they put out's right. They've never been wrong. I mean, I just don't even get hung up in that. I've been guilty. I see something outrageous and I call them out on it. I'll let somebody else do that from here on out. I'm about done with calling these guys out. I'll let you guys call them out.
My favorite line. Sorry, Scott. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was going to say my favorite line from you that you told me when I came down was that promotion shouldn't use the phrase "we save lives" because it's not so much. You can probably communicate it better than I am, but just that phrase and what you mean behind it.
Well, yeah, I mean, come on. In what we're talking about, Ricky, this was after we had a big outbreak here in 2011, and in one day in our market we had 62 tornadoes, and the death toll was 252. And if any TV station was to get on the air and run promos about how good we were and we saved lives, well, you didn't save 252. How insensitive is that? You did a crappy job because a lot of these people ought to be alive today. We did a crappy job because these people ought to be alive today. So I could care less about saving lives and that concept. And I understand there should be a time where we do celebrate the lives of those that are still here because of the warning process. I do know that. But my focus, even to this day, it's on that number, 252. And I think the death toll should have been about 30. There were 30 cases where you had no hope. There was nothing you could do. But for 222 people, they ought to be walking around today. So we didn't save lives, those lives. And for the family members to hear some stinking commercial about your weather team, making them look like angels or something special, come on. That's insensitive. And they honored that request here, that they didn't even touch anything like that. I thought the campaign they did was very appropriate here in the days and weeks after that.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I just had a question. I was going to jump on that topic. That outbreak was really important to me. I told you earlier, it was a day I definitely remember from watching it. But the death toll, and I've heard you mention this before and other things about why it was so high. What do you think went wrong that day? What can we do differently?
I think the basic problem is that we're physical science guys and we're not social science guys, and that's a problem. And we have to become social science people. We have to be better at forecasting impact and understanding how to communicate with all people groups. The easiest thing to do for everybody on this show is to communicate with somebody that looks like you, that's your age, and they live where you live, and they talk like you talk. The hardest thing is to communicate with somebody that doesn't look like you, that doesn't live in your part of town. They're a lot older, they're a lot younger, and you might even find them appalling or whatever. And we've got to be better at that. And I know a lot of things about that event and why people died. And of course, the one thing you've heard enough of me preaching about this, it's the siren thing. We know a lot of people died that day thinking you're going to hear some magical World War I air raid siren that doesn't exist. And we've got to stop that idiotic mentality of thinking you're going to hear a siren. That was a big problem. A big problem we had was our fault, guys. The false alarm ratio was too high. Warning after warning after warning after warning, and nothing happened. The one thing I saw in social science studies over and over and over, people said, I hear those warnings all the time, and what? Nothing ever happens. That is a product of the high false alarm ratio, which at the time was running at about 80, and it's the cry wolf syndrome. So that's our fault, and we've got to stop this idiotic hyperbole. And I get flustered like tonight. Every storm is a monster storm. Millions are in the path. It is unprecedented. It struck without warning, and it's because of global warming. That's the network narrative and everything now. But if every storm is a monster storm, what happens when you do have a monster storm? And I think I'm guilty of that. I used to hype things up that didn't need to be hyped up. And so we've got to quit that hyperbole and reduce the number of false alarms. And the Weather Service in Birmingham's credit, they've cut that sucker in half by going back to basic science. They've done a brilliant job. Instead of playing whack-a-mole trying to catch every little spinner that shows up on the radar, the FAR's down to 40 here now. They've cut the thing in half. So that's a marvelous thing that's happened. And I could go on for hours about this, but the other thing that people didn't really understand, and I thought they did, was storm-based warnings. People still think you warn by counties, and that creates a false alarm illusion. People hear their county's under a warning, they just assume they're in the warning. They don't stop to look and see if they're in the polygon or not. We know that people weren't adequately prepared by having a kit of things like helmets. That's crucial. We did a poor job of telling people over the years, you need to strap a helmet on. I can tell you right now, people died that day because they didn't have a helmet on. If they would have had a helmet on, they'd be alive today. And we did a very poor job reaching low-income families and Hispanics. And shame on us, and shame on me for not addressing this subject earlier. And all these things we're working on right now, so the next time it happens, it'll be better. Now, the next time we have a day like that, it's probably going to be 40 years away. I will be at the cemetery, all right? I'll be taking a dirt nap. But all it takes, guys, it's one tornado, and if it's coming down your street, that's your April 27th. And, so these things will be helping us for the smaller outbreaks and the bigger outbreaks as well. But we've learned a lot.
One more thing. One more thing. Sorry, guys. One more thing. There was a lot of things there that we could change. If you go back to that day, the one thing in the moment of that day that you could have done differently, what would it have been?
If you would narrow it down to one thing, the first thing would be to clearly communicate you need to put on a helmet. I didn't say that enough. I said it a couple of times. I didn't say that enough. There's a whole lot of things I can critique myself on, but put on a helmet. A bicycle helmet, a batting helmet, any helmet you've got, put it on. And this is not only for kids, it is for adults as well. And I failed in that regard. And also looking back on that, I don't know leading up to the event, this is not during the event, if I did an adequate job of preparing people that are lower income families that don't read the Alabama WX blog and that don't have, one of these fancy phones, and they don't have all of these fancy apps. I don't know if we adequately prepared them for what was going to happen, the magnitude of the event. People in touch, yeah, they knew. People that tune into the blog and they're focused on this stuff, and we just got to do a better job of that. The television reach has gone down. Now, during severe weather, yeah, the ratings are out the roof, but the standard newscast, the old-style newscast we do, the numbers are lower and lower and lower, and that's for everybody. That's across the board, and we're not reaching a lot of people, and we've got to seek out ways of reaching lower-income families and Hispanic families to better prepare them on what's going to happen. But the day itself, back to your original question, the helmet thing, did a very poor job with that.
One thing, we're all eager to ask you questions, James.
Go ahead, Scotty. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say we have a viewer question from Steve Monday, and then I also want to say I do want us to kind of reminisce the April 27th outbreak, because that was such a huge story, not only for yourself but the whole state of Alabama. So I did definitely want to hit on that topic. But our viewer question is, James, what is your take on some of the national platforms of network news and other cases, other channels and stuff like that? What is your case of some of those guys being more personalities than the actual weather meteorologists?
Well, all I can say is thank the Lord for Ginger Z. We've got one. We have an insider. We have a plant up there at these big bad boy places. And Ginger is brilliant. And I'm kind of a fanboy. A lot of you know this. She looped through here. Ginger was with us back when she was a college student at Valparaiso. She moved down here for a summer, and I want to say this was in 2000. This was 14 or so years ago. And she's a brilliant scientist. Is she an entertainer? Sure. You have to have a little bit of that to do this. I mean, you have to be sort of an entertainer to do WeatherBrains. But she's a brilliant scientist, and when she's on duty and when it's under her watch, it's fine. But she can't control what some of these people say, in the news department. The news people are totally out of control with hyperbole. Every stinking thing that happens. It's like we talked about tonight. Now, true, I'm not trying to lessen the impact of this storm in California. It's a big deal. It's a big story. But the problem is with these guys, every storm, it is a monster storm. There are always millions in the path. It is always something that happened without warning. It's always something that's unprecedented, never happened before, and it's the same junk. And none of this relates to the truth. And I don't know if they're hyping it up for ratings, if they're doing a political worldview thing. I really don't know what it's for. Gut feeling, it's a ratings thing. They're just trying to out-hyperbole the other network. But when it comes to, and I think you're asking about weather people that are on television that don't have any formal weather education. I don't have any problem with that. as long as they're clearly identified as that, I think Al Roker and Sam Champion and all these people fall into that category. They're very good on television. I'm not that good. I have no training in television. I don't know anything about it. I've just tried to pick it up over all these years. But again, they have to be careful. You know, what I was told years and years ago, tell them what you know and don't tell them what you don't know. There's a lot of things I don't know, and I guarantee you there's a lot of things they don't know, and I've heard some of them cross the line where they talk about things they clearly don't understand, and they just have to be careful. It goes back to the old thing, tell them what you know, don't tell them what you don't know, and they've got to be careful with that because I've heard some pretty outrageous stuff, and again, I don't know if it's political worldview or whatever, but it's just not true.
You talk about the hyperbole, and one of the big sticking points with yourself, other meteorologists, weather geeks, weather fans, is the fact of the Weather Channel naming storms. We're now into, what, the third year of that? Is that right already? The third winter season of that? You were on the program, Weather Geeks, on the Weather Channel, what, a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, something to that effect. How do you think that's playing out now? We're not seeing other outlets really jump on the bandwagon of naming these storms, but yet when you see the hashtags on social media, you know, it seems like Joe Q Public is picking up on it a little bit. Of course, it depends on where the storm starts and what region it affects, but, you know, what's your take on that now?
Well, I think it's stupid. You know, I said that on, and let me give these guys credit, okay? I mean, I went over there, and Marshall Shepard is a good friend of mine. I love Dr. Shepard. He's done more to bring the weather enterprise together than anybody else, especially during his year as AMS president. I'm a big fan of Dr. Shepard, and he asked me to come over there and be on that show, and I said, if you want me to do it, I'm in, man. I'm in. And I got over there, and I said, look, guys, you know, I'm not going to play the corporate line here. And they said, you say whatever you want to say, and I am thankful for the opportunity. But I basically said on their air, this is just stupid because it's got to be coordinated. It goes back to what I was talking about before. We have to be on the same page. It should be done through, you know, the Weather Service, like we have hurricane names. That they need to be the coordinating body. And for them to go rogue with that, it's wrong. It creates confusion. What if everybody on this show here decided to name a storm something else? You know, for one guy it's Bob, the other guy it's, you know, Bohunkus, and the other guy it's, you know, Betsy. It's just mass confusion. And it's the same problem I've got with that Torcon thing. Drives me nuts.
Agreed.
And this is nothing against Dr. Greg Forbes. People read this into some personal thing. He's a nice guy. And as far as I know, it might have been forced on him by the marketing department. But now you got the Weather Channel producing a proprietary index. And nobody wants to talk about how they come up with this thing. And, of course, in the science world, we have a standard, STP, the significant tornado parameter. It's been out there for years. It's there for the world to see. But instead of using that, the industry standard, you know, these guys go with this Torcon thing and just make up a magical number. And a year ago, it drove me crazy. I was off Christmas of last year. We had a marginal severe weather threat. I was in Fort Myers, Florida. Our son was at a baseball function, and I spent a day away from my family and away from the baseball entity putting down this Torcon number of 8, you know, DEFCON 8 or whatever, where it was a marginal event. And sure enough, nothing happened. You know, we had some thunder, lightning. I don't even think there was a single tornado warning in the state. So, and again, if all you guys have a number, you know, Ricky, man, he's got a 3. No, Scotty's got a 7. You know, Kenneth, his number's an 8. Daniel's going 15, man, and it doesn't make any sense. We've got to be on the same page, and that drives me crazy. And they've gone rogue. And the problem with the Weather Channel, they don't know what to do. Nobody's watching them when the weather's dull. Nobody. And they have no numbers, and they can't sell advertising, and they can't. It's all about the money. And it's the same problem we have. We are all fighting the same problem. People get weather off the phone now. And, you know, the Weather Channel's got an app, and they monetize that. But the television side is struggling, and it's this effort, I think, to bring people back to the television side. The only way you're going to get DEFCON is to watch the Weather Channel and Dr. Greg Forbes. That's a piece of junk. You know, to do this right, you've got to understand the people, the culture, and the geography of those that you serve. They can't do that nationally over there. I can't do Carolina weather. You guys can because you live there. You understand it. And I've said enough. I'm getting in trouble. I'm gonna.
Good,
Keep
on preaching.
One of the things you mentioned, I had the Weather Geeks programs DVR'd, so I'm not really sure if it was this past Sunday's episode or maybe Sunday before, but the panelist that was on there, and I wish I could remember his name now. He's
Tom Nissel was on there, the winter weather expert.
You know, one of the comments that he made about the reason they started naming storms was because they could. And with the Weather Service, you know, they would have to study it for years, and it would have to go through this and through that. And I understand, you know, to a degree, you know, you're this big conglomerate, so we're going to do it because we can. But just because you can do something doesn't make it right. That point really stuck out at me, you know, as he said it. And obviously the Weather Channel is his employer now after his long tenure at the Weather Service, so he, you know, he has to toe the company line too. But I found that really fascinating, the fact we did it because we could.
I mean, look, I can come out here and pee in the parking lot. That doesn't make it right. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, we've got to use discretion, and we have to coordinate better. We have to do that. And I don't know what it's going to take. I think it's going to take somebody like a Marshall Shepard, he has done an amazing job of bringing the Weather Enterprise together. Let's sit down and let's talk about it. Without, you know, we're not going to use boneheads and exploding heads and all this stuff, you know, I'm famous for saying. Let's just talk about it in a reasonable fashion, and let's see if we can come up with a solution that is a win-win, not for us necessarily, but for the public. That if we serve the public properly, we're going to be okay. Financially, we'll be okay, everything else, but we've got to start with serving the people properly. And if we're going rogue and doing all this hype stuff, that's not going to work. I mean, come on. So, and I have a lot of friends that work over there, and I will tell you, a lot of people that work over there aren't into this either. But like you say, they have to toe the company line. So again, I see it as an opportunity for us all to get better, and I like how Dr. Shepard's got his foot in the door over there. And maybe he can get a little more involved, and he's over in Athens at the University of Georgia, and maybe we can come up with a solution for everybody. But again, we're all in danger of becoming just little parties that aren't relevant to anybody. The Weather Channel, local broadcasters. I mean, we got to work hard, guys. We are in a fight, you know, to stay important, in a fight to save our careers, in a fight to, you know, provide these products and services. And I'm a fighter guy. I'm in. That's the reason I work so hard. If you serve the public properly, you'll be okay.
Program note: Dr. Shepard is our guest next week.
Good.
So, just throw that out there.
I'll be tuning in. I'm a fanboy.
We'll have to we'll press him on some of those issues too. I don't mind doing it.
Go for it.
James, for you to say you're not a good TV guy, that was a great segue for us, so we appreciate it. And by the way, if I give a Torcon a 15, I'm going to need to find me a safe room like yours, too, so I can go hide in it.
See, I don't even know what a Torcon of 8 means, but it whipped everybody into a frenzy in my market, man. And it starts, and most people don't even watch that, but you know what happens? They spread it around on Facebook and social media, and everybody hears there's a DEFCON of 8. And we got this. It's going to be worse than April 27th. That's the next thing they read. It's going to be worse than April 27th. I mean, people were panicking. They were absolutely panicking last year. And you know, I spent 24 hours calming down an unnecessary panic over some proprietary index that just doesn't need to be happening. So, I know. But
James,
I'll stop talking about Torcon. I'll get in trouble.
Okay, I may get you back on top for just a second because I want to go back to that and maybe relate it to impacts a little bit though. Because if we're trying to transition into the impacts and people understand a 1 to 10 scale or they understand low, medium, and high risk, you know, what's the best way for us to communicate that? And the second question I have is, what's your stance on meteorologists who, you know, put their own input into warnings? I've heard a lot of people who maybe are more operational siding think that if the Weather Service keeps a tornado warning up, you should keep saying there's a threat. However, if you're a meteorologist and you know how to look at radar and you can tell maybe one radar signature is stronger than the other, what's your thought on putting your personal input into it?
Well, the way I do it, I've never read, to my knowledge, a Weather Service tornado warning from start to finish. I don't think I've ever read a call to action statement on the air. I don't even know what they say anymore. You know, it might say, you know, stick your head between your legs and kiss your backside goodbye. I don't know what they say. So everything you hear when I'm up there in that green wall, it is me. What I need to know is I need to know where the polygon is. I need to know the expiration time, and then give me the ball. It's like Michael Jordan, just give me the ball, and if I can clearly see that the storm of concern has moved out of the polygon, then I'll say, hey, you're okay. I mean, I'm not going to wait until the Weather Service cancels a warning or whatever. If it's clear, I mean, perfectly clear that intense couplet or a TDS, or you're looking at it on your camera, if it's moved out of one polygon off in the next one, then you can tell people you're okay. If you live here, you're fine. You're done with it. You can go on about your business. But if you live here, you got to, be careful. So I'm kind of a hybrid guy. I have never issued my own warnings. I do not want to. We have to standardize on the Weather Service. But when it comes to communicating, once you get past the polygon and the expiration time, I kind of take that on my own. And that's why they pay me here, to do that. And I think that's what we all should be doing. And we're all different. And that's why people have a choice. There's 4 stations in my market that do weather. And if people don't like me, they'll go find the other guys. So, it's kind of a hybrid. You take part of the Weather Service products and you do your own stuff to make it personable. The Weather Service can't call out landmarks. A tornado is 14 miles southwest of Clanton. Nobody knows where that is. Even if you live in that county, you don't know where that is. But if you tell them it's at Jim's Pit Barbecue, everybody knows where that is if you live there. And sometimes you might call out a big landowner's property, a private barn. The Weather Service can't do that. I've got the freedom to do that, and I try and take advantage of that. Again, that's not – they just can't. It's just apples and oranges. There's some things the Weather Service can do that I can't, and vice versa. But we just all have to work together toward the same end result, which is being sure people know what's coming and be sure they're in a safe place.
Well, James, we're coming on the 9 o'clock hour, and I know we're going to run over a little bit. We have a lot of stuff to talk about, but I want to kind of turn this conversation into your area. And one of the biggest stories that ever has affected Alabama was the April 27th outbreak of tornadoes. And I want to make it a twofold question for you. Is first of all, I don't think a lot of people, they know the Tornado Alley in the Midwest, Kansas, Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas, places like that. But we also have a Dixie Alley that runs right through the heart of your area. So maybe you can kind of talk a little bit about that, but also kind of, if you can, just give us a flashback of what the preparation was like the day before, the day of the event, and just what you experienced throughout that tragic event.
Well, let me just say this first off. I'm not a fan of this, Dixie Alley versus traditional Tornado Alley. Who's got the most intense tornadoes? There's a lot of intense debate. I don't get hung up in that. I have no interest in that. They are both very significant tornado zones. That's all people need to know. They're different. The storms are different in many ways, but they're just both tornado-prone areas, and I'll leave it at that. Dr. Chuck Doswell, there's some people that have a big influence in my life, and he's one of them. Doswell, Harold Brooks, Alan Moeller, these guys go way back, and ask them about that. But for that day, it was a sentinel day for us. It was well forecast in advance. If you look at the Storm Prediction Center products, those convective outlooks leading up to the day, unstinking believable how good they were. You couldn't have drawn a better risk if you knew what actually happened the day before. It was forecast far in advance. The one thing we missed was a morning event. We had a morning round of storms, April 27th. 5 people died, and 250,000 people had no power. And that was a bigger impact than the inland effects of Katrina and Ivan. Hurricane. We're close to the coast here. And I didn't see that coming 12 hours in advance. And I've challenged the researchers to find out why everything failed. Numerical weather prediction failed. Old geezers like me, experience failed. We just didn't know it was going to be that bad that morning. And that was a tremendous blow to the infrastructure. We had cameras down. We had microwave paths down. We had internet outages. We had cameras out. It was like Apollo 13 going to the moon when the thing blew. We had to review what was not working and what was working in the little break in the middle of the day and try and get things back online because we knew the worst was yet to come. The core of the event was about 2 p.m. until midnight, and it was like bullets from Hades. There's no manual. There is no book. There is no guideline on how to do that. You go back and look at what I did. I don't know if it was right, wrong. I have no idea. That's for somebody else to judge. But you had it multiple times, or at a single time, multiple strong, violent tornadoes down. And what do? You've got one coming through Tuscaloosa. Everybody's so enamored on that tower cam video and all the video we had. Well, what are you going to do about the other F4 that's down in a rural part of the country? And that's one of the great faults we have in our business. We people that live in rural areas are hosed. They don't get the attention that they need on television. And I think I didn't do a good job. We get so enamored with these, video streams of these tornadoes now. We've got to focus on all of them. But it was the tornado count was 62 that day in all, just for our state. This doesn't count the adjacent states. Understand, you count the entire region. It was a lot higher than that. But for Alabama, 62 in one day. The death toll was 252, and it was. We have those about every 40 years. The analog event for us was in 1974, April of '74, the super outbreak. And prior to that, the analog was March 21st, 1932. So for us, it's about every 40 years. I call it generational. But I'm hoping what we can do after working with social scientists is hand down the knowledge. And like you guys have been saying, we have to be better at forecasting impacts. Not every tornado is the same. Every tornado does different things. And, obviously our biggest problem is the winter storm stuff. You guys know what happened in Atlanta and Birmingham in this year. That's a classic example of a failure to communicate impact. But we've got to be better at severe weather as well. But we're going to take the knowledge that we've learned and communicate that with the world for generations to come once we get all this stuff back. And we'll know a lot more as the years keep unfolding here, because we get the social science studies back and we'll know more.
I want to get one personally.
I've run you guys past the top of the hour. This is horrible.
It's okay.
Opposed you guys.
None of us are complaining. Personally, as you are in front of the camera, talking about these monstrous, violent tornadoes affecting not one place but several places throughout your viewing area, what are your thoughts? I mean, I know you're trying to serve the public, but you also, I'm sure, worried about family, friends, even your area where your station's at. I mean, what were the thoughts that are going through James Spann's head as he's on TV talking about these violent tornadoes?
That's a great question. Obviously, everybody here has family. Everybody has emotion. I don't care how hard, how tough you think you are. If you get in the middle of one of these things and a tornado goes through your neighborhood or a place where your family lives, you will be affected. It affected Jason, the guy with me, because he had some very close calls. I did not. My family was not in the line of fire one of the 62 tornadoes that day, my wife and children. But in those cases, I am so focused. And understand, guys, if you look at me, I've got a computer in front of me. You see me out there in that green wall. I got this computer in front of me. The traffic I'm looking at, your head would explode. I mean, it is mind-boggling. You've got all the Weather Service chats open. We have a chat session with our guys in the field. You've got to pay attention to that. You've got Twitter. You've got Facebook, you've got Instagram, you've got email. It is this unbelievable stream of stuff coming in. You are so focused on trying to sort out in real time, on the fly, what's important, what's not, that you don't have time to think about that. And I did not on that day. I didn't have time to do anything. I didn't get hung up in any emotional situation that day. The station was never in the line of fire. My family was never in the line of fire. But I'm telling you guys, if you're in that position out there in that green wall, and you've got this traffic that you're having to look at, you don't have time to think much. In a way, that's good. I think that eliminates the you getting hung up in the emotion. I look at the guys in El Reno in Oklahoma City, and a lot of people are critical of some of the Oklahoma City guys, and I encourage you to think before you criticize, because unless you've been out there in that green wall in a situation like that, you don't know the pressure. I've said some boneheaded things out there, and you are going to do that. You're going to make some mistakes out there, but it's very hard. I'll say this: if it was easy, everybody would do it. It's like playing pro baseball, in the major leagues. If it was easy, everybody would do it. But the bottom line is, to answer your question, I was so busy, emotion did not creep into my mind.
Hey, James, how many people did you have actually in your weather department on that day that was able to look at the Twitter and the Facebook and the the chat room, the NWS chat. How many people do you have today?
The way it works in my operation here, I've only got two guys in the studio, two Mets, okay, two meteorologists in the studio. I'm on the green wall, and you got a guy back in the equipment. And let me just say this. It is very discouraging to see how many broadcast meteorologists now hide behind the equipment rack. You never see them on camera. You've got to be on camera. Your body language is crucial. Your eye contact is crucial. You cannot hide behind that equipment, and so many people do that now, and it's very discouraging. But the way it works in my office, I'm on the green wall, and I've got a guy in the weather office, and that's it. Everybody else is in the field, and we've got one sleeping. You've always got to have one that's going to come in and work the next shift. You know, traditionally the way it works here, the tornado outbreaks are, you know, afternoon and night. Somebody's got to come in the next morning. So we had one sleeping. We had two in the studio, we had one in the field. And then you've got the volunteers, the guys that are streamers, and those guys are absolutely critical. I don't think anybody thanked John Olshu and Ben Greer for what those guys did. They caught that Tuscaloosa wedge 45 minutes before it got into the city. And they don't do it for money. They don't get paid big bucks for this. I mean, it's lucky. They probably lose money doing it, and they just do it because they want to serve the people. And those guys were heroes. The John Oldshoe, Ben Greer, John Brown, Mike Wellham, all these guys out there in the field that did those live streams. So they're very crucial. They're not professional meteorologists, although John Oldshoe is. The other guys are not. But we had Ashley Brand, who's a professional out in the field for us. But the volunteers were crucial that day, providing live streams, and we have to do a better job of showing live streams of tornadoes, because people will take action when you do that. If you show them radar, and I've seen some stations doing a tornado outbreak, all you see is radar for 7, 8, 9 hours. And that's okay. I understand it's important, but I'm telling you, I've got proof. When people look at that fancy radar and you're showing them, you know, a couplet or a correlation coefficient product, which we didn't have in 2011, now we do, people see a bucket of spilled paint. But if you show them a live stream of a tornado, they'll do something. And the problem we have in Dixie Alley, most of our tornadoes are rain-wrapped, they're at night, but the ones we can, we've got to do a better job of getting those things on camera.
You know, that's one thing that I think TV meteorologists, sometimes they've got the gadgets with them. They can look at the velocity and the coefficients and all that. But sometimes that stuff is not good to put on TV because it's just confusing to just the general public. Whereas you and I know what it means, but to Joe out at, you know, whatever street, he has no idea what that debris ball is supposed to look like. And sometimes
I agree.
People just use it because they think, well, we use all this technology and stuff. But sometimes you're just better off having it with you and using it, but not displaying it, and just verbally and emotionally telling people, you know, you need to do this.
People out there don't think like the people in here sometimes.
Definitely.
But not sometimes, all the time, because of the fact we're all weather geeks and more, you know, have a broadcasting backgrounds or feature broadcasting backgrounds. And you're right, Ricky, they don't at all. It's no fault of theirs. Like James says, we have to do a better job of communicating.
James,
James, if I could ask you a quick question. Obviously, with social media now, we're all in tune with everything that happens across the board. In your opinion, does your part of the country, or even the country as a whole, seem to get more tornadoes now than you can recall? And the reason I ask is obviously my coverage area, I'm in the mountains of North Carolina, right where Virginia, Tennessee, and North Carolina meet. It is extremely rare for us to have tornadoes. We have only had 3 documented tornadoes. As a matter of fact, I'm rechecking an article that I wrote for my website back last year. We have only had 3 documented tornadoes in my part of the country since 1965. However, we have had more watches and warnings for tornadoes in the last 3 years than I can ever recall the 21 years that I was in local and regional radio. So, you know, I don't know how qualified I am to talk about tornadoes, but I know now when I post that there's a tornado watch or a warning, my followers are, kind of taken aback. What we have that for the mountains, and it's not unheard of, but it just seems like to me now we get more watches and warnings despite the end result. What do you think as a whole or your market? Do we see more now, or we're just more aware of it?
Yeah, all I can comment on is where I am down here in the deep south, Mississippi, Alabama. Number one, are we having more tornadoes? No. In fact, if you saw Greg Carbon's update a couple of days ago, this is going to be probably the lowest output of tornadoes perhaps on record, and weather records go back, to the late 1800s. I mean, this has been one of the quietest years ever for tornadoes. I don't think there's any increase in the number of tornadoes. Now, we know more about them now because of, technology, radar, and these survey teams that go out. We didn't have any of this stuff back in the 60s and 70s. But no, I don't think we're having any more tornadoes. And for every part of the country, I do know that we were not alone in 2011 when we had a high false alarm ratio. My position on when it comes to the watches, for where we are, the SPC guys do a great job. They could not be better. I can't comment to other parts of the country, but the number of warnings, I do believe it's too high. We're playing whack-a-mole. Every time you see a couplet, hit a tornado warning. And that forces us on the air, and you're cutting off Dancing with the Stars, and everybody gets mad. But the Weather Service in Birmingham said, okay, let's go back and go to science. How many tornadoes have we had with an LCL of over 1,000 meters? None. So then why are you issuing tornado warnings for these high-base storms? They cut that out. That in itself stopped a lot of the problem. But I agree. We've got to cut down on these false alarms because people will not listen. It killed people in my state in 2011. So the false alarm problem has to be addressed. They've done it here, and I hope they do it in other parts of the country too.
Hey, in our part of the country, in the southern Appalachian region, western Carolinas, we have a lot of the high shear, low cape events. And
hate those. Hate them. Hate them.
They're rough. I mean, they are, because some weather service offices, they'll kind of, one of our neighboring offices might be aggressive on how they issue warnings, whereas our local office that we use mostly, they kind of hold a different stance. And for like Scotty and Joey and myself, when we cover our local counties, it makes it tough because sometimes they get warning happy, and then sometimes they'll completely miss out. For example, the county I live in, McDowell County, we had with I believe the October event. Is that right, Scotty?
Yeah, October 14th.
We had the EF0 event. Early in the day, they were issuing a lot of warnings for the couplets that, like you say, are really, whack-a-mole. You're just issuing warnings. But then that evening, we had a couplet that come right through the Blue Ridge that was as similar as anything we've had all day. They didn't issue it, and we ended up having a tornado. Granted, just an EF0, pretty much the minimum tornado that you can have, but it actually touched down in my county. And it's very confusing.
I have a strange thought on that. Here's my position. I don't think we're good enough to warn for an EF0 tornado in most of the most cases. We're good at handling the strong, violent tornadoes. We're good at that. But handling these, QLCS events where you've got the high shear and the low cape, and you get a little EF0 tornado that gets down for maybe, a quarter of a mile and does a little bit of damage, and it lasts for a minute. We're not that good. What is missing in this science? It's humility. There's a lot of things we can't do, and it's just like, for some reason, this science attracts these egotists, where we can do no wrong. There's just a lot of things we don't know, and there's a lot of things we can't do. So I don't think we're that good. I think the best way to handle it is with severe thunderstorm warnings. And that's the next question. Are they effective at all? Do people even listen to those things anymore? There's so many of them. But if you handle it right, we got a severe thunderstorm warning. Understand a small tornado could occur at any time with this. You clearly state that within the text of the severe thunderstorm warning, and that's the best thing we can do. And I think that's the right way to handle that. And I think they've done that a lot more here in my market, and it's worked out very well because we're just not good. We can't warn for an EF0. There might be a case, yes, but most of the time, in my opinion, no.
Well, you make a good point. You kind of answered the kind of a second part to the question I had. Our Weather Service office at Greenville Spartanburg does a fairly good job, I think, in putting that in the severe thunderstorm warning text, that it's showing signs of rotation. But then where it turns into an issue is they start getting inconsistent. They're going to pull the trigger on one for one area, and then for another area close by, when the conditions are fairly similar, they don't do it. Do you think that NOAA or the National Weather Service, whatever, could they ever maybe start some kind of new, say, group or a new kind of a term for those kind of situations with the QLCSs? Or should they just, like you said, just go with severe thunderstorm warning and then just focus on the wording inside that warning?
I'll put it this way. There's a lot of active discussion about this very topic within the Weather Service, and I don't know if a great solution is going to come out of it, but it is being kicked around. I think I made enough noise about it for so long, and that it just seemed like where I was, they were trying to issue all these warnings for tornadoes that we just can't catch. By the time you put out the warning, the tornado's gone, and it seems to me more of a CYA thing, where guys were just trying to issue so many warnings. If you had one, the POD is high, the POD is 100. But you're killing the FAR, so hopefully a solution will come out of that. But again, for now, I think the best thing to do is to go with severe thunderstorm warnings and clearly state within the text of the warning a tornado could touch down at any time without warning from a storm like this.
But here's the devil's advocate. I take it back to what happened in Birmingham and Atlanta from people not reading the winter weather advisory. Do you think people would take the time to understand that there's a potential tornado in that severe thunderstorm?
It depends on how good we are. That falls on us, the communicators. We have to be able to do that very clearly, and that involves doing a cut-in on television if it's in prime time, where you're not cutting off the whole program like you are for a tornado warning, but you come on after a commercial break and clearly say with very bold, a statement, Listen up, guys. There could be a small tornado within this line. We can't warn you because we're not that good, but just be aware of that. And if I had my family, I would just be in a safe place until this squall line gets out of here. I would take it that seriously. A lot of it involves the communication coming from people like us, and we have to just do a better job of discerning when to be bold, when not to be bold. Not all severe thunderstorm warnings are the same. Not all tornado warnings are the same. We just got to be better at that.
And James, that's one of the things, and for the rest of the panel, they already know it, that's one of the things I struggle with in my area, because I have admitted I'm not a meteorologist. My background is in broadcasting. But my area is serviced by 3 different National Weather Service offices: Greenville, Spartanburg, Blacksburg, and Morristown, Tennessee. You want to talk about some headaches and pulling your hair out sometimes, maybe not during tornado warnings, but severe thunderstorm warnings, winter storm warnings. Oh man, it is a night. All of those offices do a great job. Yes, I'll preface that. But man, you talk about a nightmare sometimes. I can only imagine what that's like, when tornadoes are in play.
But that's got to be our job. We are paid to do that. We are here to take all that and make sense of it and present it as a package that people can understand and give them the proper information to make good decisions with. And that's the reason we're here. It's, in a way, it's kind of comforting. I think it's good job security. Some people think that there won't be anybody like us around in 5 or 10 years because it's all going to be automated and people just get it on their phone, and during tornado warnings, there's no need for these guys. I think there's a need for us, and I think that's a great example of why there's a need for us. We have to make sense out of this complex stuff, and sometimes it is very complex. Our biggest challenge, and to me that's the easy part of my job, the challenge I have is, what do you do on the 325 days of the year when it's sunny or partly sunny and there's nothing exciting to talk about? We're talking about all the sexy stuff, tornadoes and winter storms and ice storms. That's a very small percentage of what we do, and that's my biggest struggle, is how to be interesting out here, like on this wall out here in a few minutes, on a night when it's clear. There's not a cloud in the sky. Temperatures are average. There's no monster storm coming that's unprecedented, that's, in millions in the path here. It's just quiet. So that's where I think I'm weak, and I've got to get better at that.
Your colleagues in California tonight would love to trade places with you, I bet.
Yeah.
You could always just post up random 240-hour Euro models and say there's a storm coming.
Oh, boy, don't get me started on that. Yeah,
But
let's take a look at 360-hour output here. We got a big snowstorm, and it's going to snow 3 inches here. And I like what Ryan. I don't know if you guys know Ryan Maui. He makes the maps for Weather Bell, and most people like to use those maps. It's a subscription service, but they're marvelous. I use them on the videos that I do, and it is based on their terms of service. You can't post a European snow output map. You can't do that. And some knucklehead was trying to do that, and he shut him down. I mean, I kind of like that. I wish in a way it was like that almost with a GFS, but again, that's just, we have to be careful with that. If you guys ever see me posting a 240-hour snow map, just shoot me. Bury me upside down in the parking lot where the kids can park their bike there.
Yeah, we just got one posted today. A monster snowstorm supposedly supposed to happen at the end of next week. So
I got 15 inches coming my way.
Yeah, we got 18. We got 18
Great.
inches of snow here.
Great.
James, I had one question going back a little bit, kind of talking about the outbreak. We had a tornado in 2012, right, Scotty? Burke County, 2012?
Yeah,
2012.
January 11th.
2012. After tornadoes aren't all that common in our area. So after that storm now, every time there's a dark cloud in that area, people freak out. And I'm just curious, how much difference is, have you seen a lot of that in your area since the major outbreak?
My experience, it's about a 3-year thing. After 3 years, they calm down. But you've got 3 years of this heightened awareness, and you have to take advantage of that. During those 3 years, number one, you have to be the calming voice to let them know that this is not really a big deal. But take advantage of it, and that, hey, be sure you got a way to get warnings. Don't think you're going to hear a siren. That's stupid. Get a weather radio. That's the baseline, or get your good smartphone app. And we try to do that. And our time's about up. We're past 3 years now. We're at 3.5 years. So that heightened awareness has kind of faded away here. So it's a problem, but at the same time, it's an opportunity. But yeah, one of the first things I have to do is just calm everybody down. I mean, whether it's, a blog post or a post on social media, whatever. Hey guys, just take a big deep breath. It's going to be stormy. Could there be some severe weather? Yes. Is it going to be a big tornado threat? Probably not. But if there's a warning or two, hey, you'll know about it. If you know what to do, you're going to be fine. But yeah, calming nerves is just part of what we have to learn to do.
James, I want to go back to April 27th real quick, though, and Joey, I'll let you jump in after, but I want to know a good story that came out of that. Because it seems like we always have all the, the bad stories, but I know personally you've seen a lot of good that's come out of that day. So what are some of those events?
Well, when it comes to the good stories for me, it's how for a few days we forgot about politics. Nobody was a Democrat. Nobody was a Republican. Nobody was a liberal. Nobody was a conservative. I just saw people helping neighbors. I saw communities springing into action where there was no FEMA. There was nobody there. They just helped people. And that is always the best part for me, is that's the way it works around here. And that was very encouraging to see. In my therapy in a situation like that, and here's the problem I've got, guys. For years and years, when a big event was over, you could go get off the grid. You're done. The news department, they've got it now. You're done. For days, you got clear, cold weather. It's no problem. You can kind of begin to wind down. I never had. Now you don't have the opportunity, because on the Twitter here, everybody's looking for you. I mean, the Twitter was so intense over the next 5 days after April 27th. I couldn't put it down. Of course, I had to do television and all this other stuff, and I didn't have a chance to decompress. And what helped me, after about 5 days, I just said, all right, I got to take a day off. And on a Saturday, we didn't play baseball. We got some of the baseball dads, and we went out in the country. And I'm talking out in the country. You guys look like a bunch of city slickers on here. I mean, you go out in the country, because there were people that lived in rural areas that I knew that needed help. So we went out in the country, and we found a lot of people that needed help, but we adopted a family. And this was a family that heard the warning. They live in a rural part of the state. They lived in a trailer. And they heard the warning, and they had an underground storm pit. And if you don't know what that is, let me tell you what, they're safe if you get in one. They're not very comfortable. They're pretty nasty, but if you get in one, you're safe. And this family was a large family of 11. survived in the storm pit, and we found them, and they were basically out there with no help days after it happened. And we helped get them into a new house was the bottom line. We found a contractor. We found some folks that could help and get some supplies and some people that knew how to build a house. And it kind of looked like a barn, but their new house was a whole lot nicer than the old trailer that they lived in. And that's a good story for me. It was therapy for me. I can't save the world. You guys can't save the world. I mean, my state was decimated everywhere. It was just carnage and people in need. It is so overwhelming. But I think the right response is just to adopt one family. So that's what we did. And they moved in the day before Christmas in 2011. That was very good for me and helped me get off of this, pity party and the anger and all these phases that you go through. And it got me into let's roll up our sleeves and fix it, not only toward getting them in a new house, but fixing the warning process so this kind of thing, won't have that high loss of life again. And by the way, guys, I got 4 minutes, and I got to start doing radio. I'm sorry. I still do radio weather, and you know how it is. You got to do what you got to do.
Agree.
Yeah.
Why don't I let Scotty ask about the blizzard of '93, and then we'll start wrapping stuff up then after that.
Yeah, that was a nutso storm. It was in the middle of March, and I thought it was forecast pretty well. Obviously, we didn't know. We had the official snow total in my market was 13 inches. Some of the suburbs had 2 feet. But Kevin Selly, our WeatherBrains guy, back then he called himself Kevin Collins. You go to YouTube and you'll find video. It was pretty primitive graphics, but we had hurricane force winds and 13 inches of snow, and that was some real bonding right there. But yeah, that was a sentinel event, the blizzard of '93. But yeah, just go to YouTube and search it out. You'll see some of the coverage from that. Dan Satterfield worked for us. Dan is in Maryland right now, not too far from you guys, and he's a great friend and a great scientist. And I'd say that's probably one of the strongest groups I've ever worked with was with Kevin and Dan back then.
Hey James, talking about March '93. I mean, you said the computer models in particular. There's one that really nailed that about 4 or 5 days out, and you're seeing that on the computer, and you're trying to tell your people on TV this is going to happen. But let's be honest, you don't have a blizzard in the South too often. I mean, did you kind of feel back then that the people were like, this man's crazy? What is he talking about? Or
yeah, well, it was the middle of March. The flowers were blooming, and you had the spring home and garden show, and I mean, it was a time of the year where you're thinking about warming up, and no, a lot of people didn't listen, and a lot of people were caught off guard. That was a tragedy. I mean, we had some loss of life. I mean, you had to have the National Guard called in. You had people stranded all over the place. It was some people had no power for over a week or two, and they weren't quite prepared for that. But I thought we handled that about as good as we could. I look at the biggest forecast errors in my life. One was in January of '82. That was the biggest one. That was a timing error on an ice storm. The initiation of that event should have been at night. It started in the morning. And then the second worst mistake was this year, January of this year, where we had a 2-inch snow here. And it was 19 degrees when it started. We have not in 35 years in my watch have we had snow accumulating at 19 degrees. Fellas, I have learned something. The ice accretion process is radically different at 19 degrees compared to the 30 to 35 that it typically is here. And I didn't know that. Nobody knew that. And we had basically the effect of a crippling ice storm. We had about 8 people that were killed, 50,000 people stranded on highways here from an event where we said on the air, and we don't expect any driving problems. That one's going to haunt me for a long time. And if you're in this business, you're going to have them. It's just what we do. But again, it goes back to forecasting impact, and we've just got to be better at that. We're not road engineers, but by golly, we need to be. So we need to be taking classes on ice accretion during winter storms on various road surfaces. I've learned a whole lot since that event, but that's just an example of impact forecasting. We have to be better. But thank you guys for letting me come on the show here. I hate to run, but if I don't get this stuff done, it's never going to happen.
Most definitely. Well, it seems like we need another hour and a half to speak with you, James. I mean, we so much more to
that'll
talk
be a disaster.
About. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. Just quick, do you have any Carolina connections? Ever been up in the area here or anything like that?
I just know some old buddies up there. You guys know Nate Johnson?
Yes.
WRAL. We've been doing WeatherBrains for 8 years, maybe 9 years now. But Nate joined us about 3 or 4 years ago. He's great. He's like the professor of the group. Like he teaches a class, at NC State, I think, where he teaches up there.
Right.
Yeah, we had Nate on 2 weeks ago, right, guys?
Yeah, yep. Nate was on a couple weeks ago, and I know you know Panovich.
Yeah, Brad Panovich is over in Charlotte. He's a great friend, and whenever people ask social media questions, I send them to Brad because he's the social media expert, not me. But Steve Hamill is the general manager at WRAL in Raleigh, and I work with Steve in Dallas, and he's a good friend. And Carolina is a just beautiful state with the mountains on one side. It's kind of like my state. We have the tail end of the Appalachians here. We have the Gulf Coast. You guys have the Outer Banks and the mountains. So it's kind of a similar type situation. So it's a beautiful part of the world, and just love coming up through there every time. And I think what's up there? The AMS this year?
Up
in Raleigh.
Johnson's AMS Broadcasters Conventions in Raleigh.
I need to get up there for that. Johnson's trying to get me up there. I'll see if we can come up there and stir up some trouble.
Yeah, I think actually some of us from Burke Weather is going to try to get to that as well. And one other cool question, I know you got to go. I'm headed to Birmingham January 3rd to watch my Gators play in the Birmingham Bowl. Where do I need to go? Tell me some things about Birmingham that you love.
This is a pretty cool little city. Goodness, you got to go to Dreamland Barbecue, which is near the UAB campus in Birmingham. The first thing you'll see is a neon sign in there that says "No farting." Don't let that scare you. That's the greatest rib joint in the state. Send me an email. I'll give you all kinds of places to go.
All right, we'll do that.
James, just to let you know what kind of guy I am. My bucket list actually says eat the world's best barbecue. That's on my bucket list. I don't know where that is or if I'll ever find it, but hopefully I'll know it when I eat it.
There you go. Hey guys, thank you all for letting me come on the show. It was fun.
Thanks, James.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye.
See you.
All right, guys. Well, great show tonight with James Spann. I don't know about you guys. We'll kind of recap it here. I feel like we could have talked for another hour. So many other questions to ask, but what an awesome guy to have on the show.
Yeah, that's true. I just got a note, and we didn't have time to call him out on it, but a friend of mine just said that she's a big fan of him until he said Appalachian.
I knew y'all were going to comment on that. But
yes. Yeah, I caught that too. So.
Well, I'll tell you what, that was a great interview, and for folks that may have caught, I know a lot of my folks were catching the middle and tail end of it. We'll recap and post the link to the entire show on all of our outlets coming up. James really is one of the leading, not only meteorologists in the country, but as he said, one of the early adapters to social media, just like Brad Panovich and all of us did. And that's really changed the nature of getting information out, as we know. So he is highly regarded in the weather community, and it was really good to have him on the program tonight.
Yeah, most definitely. Ricky, I'm going to put you on the spot. I know you actually went down and visited him. You can tell from just what we talked about his passion, but you know him on a more personal basis than we do. What is it like to kind of just shadow James Spann for an hour or so?
He's a really laid-back person, and one of the things that was really interesting for me when I went down there is if you go and visit him or you just talk to him in general, he cares about every single person he talks to, and that he will try to figure out what your life's like, what your interests are, how you connect to him, how he connects to you, and just try to create more of a friend bond with people instead of a lot of people that you meet, especially some of the more famous people who are kind of just, seeing you as a fan or seeing you as just another person they run into. James takes the more personal connection to everything.
Yeah, he seems like a really good guy to me. What he's talking about, us actually serving the public, and I think we all, I know I do, and I won't speak for you guys, but I think, that's something that we don't really think about a lot, is we're actually doing this to serve public. We enjoy it, it's fun to us and stuff, but it is all about serving the people.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, guys, we'll kind of wrap up the show. Next week, as Joey talked about earlier in the show, we're going to have Marshall Shepard on, kind of just talk a little bit more just in general stuff with him. I know climate debate will be talked about. One other thing, I'd love to get his take on the naming of storms and stuff. I missed the show that James was on with Marshall talking about that, so maybe we can have him comment on that as well.
And it's also important to note to our viewers that are tuning in at any point that Marshall, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, president of the AMS, American Meteorological Society.
Mm-hmm. He was the, I forget if he's still the president, or I believe that maybe that resets very soon, but Marshall was the president of the AMS, which is one of the governing, or I should say, large weather organizations that kind of set some of the rules, guidelines, and stuff for weather enterprises across the nation.
One of only, correct me if I'm wrong, Ricky, one of only 3 organizations or 2 organizations that really are the governing body for weather, I guess.
In the United States, we have the American Meteorological Society, and then there's the National Weather Association. Those are the 2 main groups. And then worldwide, there's the World Meteorological Association as well, or organization, one of the 2. That kind of governs everything. They actually pick the hurricane names at a conference for the Atlantic and basins, and then the AMS kind of just serves as the guideline for all the weather sectors across the United States.
So needless to say, Dr. Shepard is a heavy hitter in the weather community, so it'll be really good to have him on too.
Yep.
Yes, looking forward to it, and just a good show, guys. I hope everyone who was watching tonight enjoyed it, and Joey, you and I are going to be heading off to school presentations tomorrow, so looking forward to that as well.
That's correct. An early morning for me. We know I don't go to sleep until 6:30, so I got to be there at 8:30. So
just drink a couple extra cups, coffee, man. You'll be fine.
And Ricky's probably packing up, ready to head to Virginia.
I need to. I haven't yet. That's actually a good thing you reminded me, because I would have forgotten until tomorrow morning when I have other stuff that I have to do. So thanks.
Yeah. So we'll, Kenneth, as always, great to have you back on tonight, and hopefully you'll be able to join us next week for Marshall and continue to join us throughout some of the shows.
I hope so. And Scotty, remind our viewers and myself as well, the show next week, what day, what time?
That is Wednesday. We're going to go back to our Wednesday shows at 8 p.m. With Marshall Shepard. I think that's the only guest that we have on for that show. So next Wednesday, I guess, what is that, the 16th or 17th, something like that?
It'll be the 17th next Wednesday.
The 17th, we'll have Marshall Shepard on at 8 o'clock as well. So, Daniel?
I was going to say, first off, it was great to have James Spann on tonight. What a guy he is, man. He's got a great personality just by our conversation we had with him tonight, and of course what you said, Ricky. Seems like a really good guy, and it was awesome to have him on and have Mr. Shepard on next week. Quite a way to finish out 2014 for the Carolina Weather Group. We've had a lot of good people on here, and we're finishing out on a high note.
It's definitely a great group that we all work together, and just looking forward to seeing what next year holds for us, and maybe Ricky can snag a Spann for us early next year to kind of continue our discussion. I know he really didn't even get to talk about the tornado warning siren, which not a lot of us around here have those, but down in Alabama, a lot of people depend on those, and it actually had a reverse effect and actually cost some people some lives down there during the outbreak.
Well, I've got Kevin Selly lined up for a year already, so I just need a date from you. So.
Awesome. Well, we'll get that. We'll look after once we close out. We'll up the schedule and we'll get him on the program. So, anyways, we'll kind of wrap up tonight. Next week, next Wednesday at 8 p.m. we'll have Marshall Shepard on, the AMS meteorological president, also Weather Geeks host, and I think he teaches at UGA as well. So he'll be our guest next week, and then we'll be off for the next 2 weeks for Christmas and New Year's, and we'll pick back up in January. So for everyone on the panel, we appreciate you guys viewing tonight. We're sorry it went over, it's almost an hour and 40 minutes, but hope you enjoyed the program. Make sure to share this program with all your friends and comment on our Facebook page. Tell us what you want to see in some upcoming shows, and we just appreciate your viewership. And as always, it's been a Carolina's Weather Group discussion. We hope you enjoyed it. Hope you have a great night, and we'll see you next week.